Hi guys, we are here today with a very special guest, Andrew, and we are just about to have a chat with him in regards to his line of work and his own journey. So hi Andrew, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's such a pleasure to have you. And I just really wanted you to tell us a bit about yourself and what you work with.
So, at age of 21, I had a sort of spiritual awakening. I was supporting a friend of mine in London. She had to give a talk, and I basically walked into this room and had a very powerful experience of oneness with all of life. And I spent the next 10 years of my life trying to recreate that feeling of oneness. So my journey's been one of, I was a professional musician. And to cut a long story short, I started to specialize in body work. I started to specialize in touch. So I developed working with touch, working with healing principles. So that's been my journey. It's just been one of learning how to be fully embodied, learning how to be fully here in the present moment. So what I see a lot in life is a lot of spirituality is about, for me, is escaping from life. And for me, real enlightenment is embodiment. It's to really fully live here, present now, in the body.
Okay.
Because I think that's a magical thing, to live present and to really be present and be embodied within ourselves. So I always say to people, spiritual heaven isn't up there. It's deep in the deeper dimensions inside of us. You'll be surprised. You talk to people and they say, "Oh, the higher dimension up here," and it's not up there. It's deep inside you.
Yeah.
So that's and often people think when they die they go somewhere. They go somewhere, but they don't go anywhere.
Oh wow.
No.
Where do they go? Where do they go? What happens?
They go into the deeper dimensions inside themselves.
Okay.
So that's a totally new way of looking at life, isn't it? That there's no sense of going anywhere. It's almost like we come out of the void, we come out of this deeper dimension, we're here for a little while in the physical, and then we dissolve back. But we're not going up there anywhere. This is the big illusion around spirituality. All the dimensions are present now, within us. So that's quite interesting for your viewers.
Yeah, definitely.
So my journey's been one of integrating spirit and matter together. And I see that that's where most human beings get challenged, is that they can have a taste of that higher state, but they can't integrate it into their daily life, And the daily life here, the physical life here, is challenging. So for me, spirituality has to be practical. It has to be in your daily life, it has to be in your relationships, it has to be in your work, it has to be right here, right now. So you have to raise your consciousness, but live in the world fully.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Many people, they have a taste of that and then they spend their whole life running, trying to find it somewhere, outside of themselves.
Going within.
And one of the teachings is really to understand is that your daily life is always presenting you with opportunities to go deeper into yourself. Every challenge in your life is an opportunity to go deeper.
Okay. And I'm also aware that you're working with the Gene Keys.
Yes.
And when did you start working that project? And how was it?
Yeah, I mean that was an amazing experience because before I met the Gene Keys, I was already quite an established teacher. I've been doing this for nearly 30 years. So it was very humbling for me to come to the Gene Keys because there I was, an established teacher, and the Gene Keys really pointed to some aspects about myself that I'd just taken for granted were parts of me, but in fact were defense mechanisms that I'd learned as a child. So that was really humbling. And also I saw it as an incredible tool, very direct access to truth.
Yeah.
Very direct.
Great. And could you tell us a bit more about the Gene Keys and how do they work? Is this some sort of DNA activation, or is just going within your own sense of self and character, or is it both?
It's definitely working with the DNA.
Okay.
It's the essence of the teaching. That within our DNA DNA is an incredible substance. It's in every cell in our body, obviously. But it contains not only your biological history, but it contains all the history from the Big Bang. That's contained in your DNA. So there's so much potential. It's amazing. So yeah, it's absolutely about DNA activation. But it's not DNA activation in the point of view of, how can I say? It's not from the point of view of going somewhere. It's from the point of view of facing that which is in the DNA that's ancestral, that needs to be transformed. So the more you embrace it, so the main teaching of the Gene Keys is that every shadow contains a gift. So the real work in the Gene Keys, and it's something very revolutionary, is that if you face your shadows, in other words, if you embrace fear, out of that comes genius. So it's a very novel teaching. It's a courageous teaching, because how many? I mean, imagine if I sold that. I said, well, if you want to become really enlightened and free, I want you to embrace your fears. And how many people really do that?
Yeah, it's true.
Most of us spend our lives trying to find a system that will take us away from that and let us avoid that. But actually, the Gene Keys say now is the time in humans' evolution where we have to learn how to be with all of those ancestral fears. It's pretty strong.
Yeah. And is that something related, or where did that knowledge came from of the Gene Keys? Is it something you guys worked together to put together, or did it come from?
I mean, it's not from me. I mean, Richard Rudd actually transmitted this, but the Gene Keys was built on another system called human design. So even Richard says that not all of this came from him.
Sure.
So what he did is he took the human design system, and he saw its limitations, and he created the Gene Keys from his own contemplation, basically.
But this knowledge of connecting the cellular memory with words that unleash the power within yourself.
Yes, exactly, you've got it.
For me, it's something, oh wow, this has got to be coming from elsewhere. It can't just come, because it's funny, the duality of it. Oh, it's coming from a higher state, but then the higher state is inside you.
Exactly. So that's the whole teaching of the Gene Keys, is that your genius is contained in your DNA. It's like we're all born genius. That's my website, Born Genius. We're all born genius. And the definition of genius is to allow life to unfold without force. It's a really interesting statement. It's from one of the Gene Keys. The definition of genius is to allow life to unfold without force. So how many, and if you look at children live like that, small children live like that, but then we force them into, learning and becoming, you understand what I mean?
Yes,
our whole society is based around this idea that we have to improve, we have to, and actually we don't. We just have to let life evolve naturally from within us, and we'll naturally find our way.
But then, if we are constructing these false beliefs that we have to act in a certain way, or we need this, or we need that to become happy, which nowadays is related to, I would say, financial freedom or whatever it is. When we unlock our powers, is it about breaking out those beliefs and then coming to our natural state, or is it even, I don't know, is it something even above and beyond that? What does it mean like that? It's so complicated to kind of. Okay, so I chose to be born and go through all these beliefs. I chose my path with this particular set of genetic keys to unlock. But then to only find that none of it is real, is all an illusion, and I can break free from out of it. Does that make sense? Is that related to the project?
Yeah. I think it's a great question. So it's like, in other words, you're asking, where do our limitations come from? Where do our, why do we develop all of these like ideas or beliefs, or where does that come from? And it's a deep question. So from the Gene Keys point of view, we're innocent. We're innocent, So, I mean, I can't give you a definite answer of the why and the how. I mean, I can intuit it, but I would imagine a soul, you know, decides, I'm going to heal that aspect of the sacred wound, you know. So this is something to really understand. What is the wound? We're all wounded in a way. What is the wound? The wound is separation from our spirit, or separation from love, separation from our heart. So when we're born, you know, it's like we're born into the physical world, and that's shocking for a spirit. We move from spirit, from absolute freedom into limitation, into constriction, actually. But there's enough memory in us as a small child. We're still in that state of love and union from the deeper realms within us. But then as we age, of course, we start to take on this sacred wound. And there's 6 of them: separation, repression, denial, shame, rejection, and guilt. 6.
Yeah.
So we all carry an aspect of that, you know, and all of our wounding comes from that. But the ultimate wounding is separation from our divinity, you know, which is what all the teachings talk about. So the question is, we're all trying to get home.
Yeah.
And the ironic thing is that we're already home. You know? That's the whole mystery. And it's like that which you are seeking for is already there. You know? It's what the Buddha discovered, right? You know, exactly. It's like, you know, he was just a simple man, but he was already free. You know? So this is the paradox. It's a real paradox. So we're already free, but we entangle ourselves in limitation for the joy of it, for the play of it, to get free again. But in the same time, we actually heal something. We heal something. It's almost like we're claiming back something that was lost. Something. I have a great idea for you. Imagine you're hanging out in pure consciousness, in pure love, right? You're hanging out in pure love. But there's no separation, there's no you and me, there's no flowers, you can't smell, you can't look at a sunset, you know. So consciousness is just this one unity. Okay. So of course after a while, after a few billion lifetimes, consciousness got a bit bored and decided, you know what, I want to play in the world. So I'm going to separate myself into all these different people and all these different experiences, and I'm going to play until I finally come and remember who I really was and I come home again, you know. So that's the game. That's the game.
So is that God then, that consciousness?
Yeah, it's God, you know, losing himself in matter.
Oh wow. That's a great concept.
It's not a concept, it's actually how it is.
Okay.
So consciousness actually limits itself in form, in physical form. So you've probably heard that teaching. All physical form is made up of consciousness, But because we're in physical form, it looks like everything's separate and everything's disconnected, and we feel that pain of separation. That's why we love to fall in love, because it reminds us of that feeling of unity. So that's why love is so powerful. And then, but of course, it's very painful as well, because after a while, when you're in love, when you're in relationship, suddenly, you know, it's no longer that feeling of freedom and openness and love, because all the patterns, all the karmic patterns start to come up. So that's one of the reasons in the Gene Keys we tell people, stay in relationship. Don't leave when it gets hard. Face those fears. Be responsible for your own pain. Yeah.
Great. Easier said than done.
Yes, it's challenging. I mean, if you go to my website, it says 3 courageous inner journeys that will transform your life. So you have to be courageous with this. It's a courageous path.
And which ones are the journey? Activation
sequence, Venus sequence, Pearl sequence. So all of them are going to take you deeper and deeper into your inner dimensions. So it's very practical.
Okay. So we were talking about consciousness now, and that brings me to the concept of spirituality and religion. So would you consider yourself a spiritual person or a religious person, or do you see a difference between them?
You know, to be human is to be spiritual. We're spiritual. I mean, life is spiritual. Life is... So anything that's honouring life for me, whether you call that religion, whether you call that spirituality, anything that honours life, as that for me is the essence of spirit or religion, if you want to call that. Because I mean, for me, religion is not a set of beliefs. It's a mystery. Spirit is a mystery. You know, it's the unknown. So anything that honours the sacred is honouring the unknown, that which is sacred. And we're obsessed these days with knowing.
We are, it's true.
And it's the opposite, you know, it's about not knowing. The more you embrace not knowing, the more magical your life becomes.
Wow. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
So when I'm answering your questions, I'm not thinking with my mind, I'm letting the mystery inside of me answer the question. And then all sorts of miracles happen, like you're getting messages to answers. You know?
Yeah.
So you let the mystery come out of you.
The mystery replies by itself, or responds itself, or unfolds itself.
When you stop using your mind.
When you surrender to it.
Yeah, when you surrender to the silence inside of you.
Oh wow, poetical. I love the Gene Keys because it's such a romantic.
Yes, he's a poet.
I love it. It's so great. With that said as well, we talk a lot about ascension and this ascension. So we talk a lot about the ascension movement in the Power Within. And basically, I just wanted to know if you agree there is this kind of process happening at the moment.
Yes, absolutely. We're living in a very, very exciting time. But again, that word ascension has this idea of rising up. And for me, ascension means spirit coming more into the body and us living more fully here in the body. So bringing in all those beautiful qualities, but really embodying them, you know.
Yeah.
So again, that's why we emphasize staying in your relationships, staying with difficult situations and not trying to avoid things that are really challenging or difficult, but really honouring those really strong emotions that rise up. There's no possibility of ascension unless you deal with your karma, you deal with all the wounding you carry in your emotional body. You know? Yeah. So I have a very different viewpoint to it. You know, I believe we should build our foundation from the bottom up. You know, rather than just trying to open up out here like a sunflower, you know, with a weak root. I believe we create a very strong root in our physical body and emotional body to bring the higher frequencies in. So that's my idea, or to let them unfold from within us, not from up there, but from within us, something like that. So that's my idea. But I totally agree that there's a huge transformation going on. But I wouldn't call it ascension. I would call it embodiment.
Oh, okay, great.
I would call it spirit coming more and more fully into body.
It sounds a very shamanic way of knowledge.
Yes.
Very factual and very...
Yes, grounded. And feminine. And feminine. It's a feminine teaching. Okay. Feminine is present, here in the now, taking care of practical things. It's like if women ruled the world, we'd be in a much different place, right?
Yeah.
It's true, because they're full of love. You know? It's the masculine principle, but there's nothing wrong with the masculine, but when it's not guided by the feminine, we get into trouble.
So is that why the ascension movement comes with the age of Aquarius, bringing the feminine into...
Exactly.
Okay, great. So we're down to our last question now, Andrew, and I just wanted to say thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And it's something we love to ask our guests, basically to find more about themselves. And so if you could please tell us, what was your most amazing or the darkest experience that you have had in your journey?
So, the most amazing experience. I think every moment is amazing for me these days. You know, each moment is quite amazing. You know, to live in this amazing world. You know, I mean, I think life is amazing. I think I'm so grateful to be alive. You know, I mean, I could give you high spots. You know, high experiences, but for me, it's to be fully present. You know, like this experience right now is blissful for me in a way. It's joyful and blissful. Yeah. So I think that just the joy of living, the gratitude of living is the most amazing thing for me. And certainly I've had a lot of dark moments on my journey and continue to. I mean, every time I lose consciousness or lose awareness, it's painful for me these days, incredibly painful. So I think that's the most painful thing for me, when I lose presence. Because every time I do that, you know, there's always some sort of pain somewhere, either in my relationships or something that wasn't covered. So presence, you know, but of course you have to forgive yourself for those moments as well. So,
Yeah.
so that's my answer.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for watching.